What's up guys, CO here with week 7 of the NES. This week we are going up against Super Nerd 92 and the Seattle Wingulls. All the important links will be down in the description below, including a post-com of this battle, actually, if you want to check things out from his side. I think he's still doing team builders too, but I'm not, so I'm going to go ahead and preview my team here. First up, we have Lopunny, which is actually kind of interesting this week, because I was Fake Out, Quick Attack, Baton Pass, and Fire Punch. Priority doesn't work super well this week, but I couldn't really figure out what else I wanted on Lopunny. I figured just the chip damage late game might be kind of nice, so I opted for Fake Out Quick Attack because they do the same amount of damage, so I can scout how much Quick Attack's going to do to any set before I actually do it, which is kind of nice. Next up we have a kind of standard Choice Scarf, Darmanitan, U-Turn, Flare Blitz, Rock Slide, and Will-O-Wisp. Will-O-Wisp is probably the only out there thing on it, but I wanted to be able to Willow both Scizor and Mega Medicham if I needed to, both of which came, which is nice. Next up we have Lantern, which is a Normalium Z, Ice Beam, Volt Switch, Scald, and Heal Bell set. Normalium Z is obviously for Heal Bell. If you don't know, Z Heal Bell basically heals you up to full and then gets rid of your status. Just an alternate way of getting recovery onto some stuff that didn't really have good recovery options before, I guess. And then we have Delmise, who's making his return from week 1, I think, hasn't been around since, with Life Orb, Anchor Shot, Power Whip, Rock Slide, and Hidden Power Fire to catch Scizor. It doesn't OHKO, especially if he has an Occaberry, but it actually does quite a lot of damage, surprisingly. Delmise has decent special attack. Obviously you normally use it as a physical attacker because it has 130 attack or something. But it still has 80 special attack, I think, so it's still usable. It's just not the main thing you think of with it. Sylveon is a leftover sub-Calm Mind set with Hyper Voice and Hidden Power Fire, again for Scizor. He's brought it pretty much every week, so I kind of game planned pretty heavily for it, as well as having used it last season. I know that you kind of have to game plan heavily for it, or it's kind of quietly just going to wreck your shit. And finally, I have Rocky Helmet Cresselia, meant to deal with, again, both that Scizor and the Mega Medicham. It's Fizz Def with Moonlight, Lunar Dance, Trick Room, and Toxic. Toxic is to wear down the walls that are going to switch in also, since they're both good against Cresselia. This team that he brought is pretty much what I expected. The second he picked up all 3 of the things on the left in Mandibuzz, Jellicent, and Aerodactyl, I kind of knew they were coming this week. They have good matchups, and I expect Aerodactyl to probably be Choice Scarf just to outspeed. Mandibuzz and Jellicent are probably just going to be pretty standard walls, I would guess. Scizor can kind of be anything. He's been using it more offensively the past couple of weeks, but I can see it being defensive with Defog or something if he wants to keep hazards up and doesn't want to put Defog on his other flying things, I guess. Thundurus-T I also expect to be Choice Scarfed. I know that its speed tier is kind of the only thing that holds it back sometimes, and I know that he's going to want to outspeed Mega Lopunny, so I expect it to be Choice Scarfed, at which point I can pretty much just hardwall it with Lantern. And Mega Medicham's probably going to have a bunch of priority and high jump kicking stuff. So I'm going to kind of lead standard this week and just lead Mega Lopunny, because there's not really a reason not to, and just get the Fake Out off. He ends up leading Aerodactyl, which I guess is about what I expected. He shows Unnerve instead of Pressure, which is kind of interesting. It's not really super relevant, but it's interesting, I guess. That damage does about what I expected an offensive Aerodactyl to do. So I'm going to go ahead and scout here. I'm going to play it kind of safe this game because I want to see what style Super Nerd's trying to play with. So for the first couple turns of this game, I'm going to kind of just make defensive switches most of the time. So I'm going to go into Cresselia here because I figure he's not going to go for a crunch, and if he does go for a crunch, it shouldn't really be doing that much. Him staying into Wing Attack kind of shows me that he's Scarfed. He could have bluffed it, I guess, and just hoped that I wasn't pretty much a max speed Lopunny. But I speed crept him to be able to outrun any regular Aerodactyl, which is nice, I guess. So he takes pretty much about as much damage from the Rocky Helmet as I took from the Wing Attack. It's at this point that I'm pretty sure that he's running double Scarf, so I'm just going to play around it between Aerodactyl and Thundurus-T. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a Trick Room while he switches out, because I wasn't sure if he did have Crunch and he was Darkinium Z Crunch and tried to go for it there or something. I wanted to be able to just get the Trick Room up and play around it next turn. So I've already kind of revealed that I have Trick Room again, but it's not super important this week. Delmise was mostly here for a Swampert that didn't come, so the only thing it really does well against, honestly, is Jellicent. It also serves as a high jump kick switch in, I guess. But reading the knockoff there, I decided to go into Dowsy, who doesn't take damage because he's a Z item. This is also intentional, and thanks to Beard practicing with me for this one. I had noticed that knockoff was kind of good against my team, so I wanted to have a Z move this week, and what better Z move user to have than my wall that gets a healing Z move, I guess, anyway, since I didn't really need an offensive one. So I pretty much get a free Volt Switch here. He obviously has Thundurus-T, so he can go into it here, but I actually have Ice Beam on Lantern, and I have enough special attack in here to be able to 2-hit KO it if it switches in. So I'm just going to go for Volt Switch. End up catching Jellicent, which is nice, so I just go ahead and go into Delmise, because like I said, this is pretty much the only thing it's here for. Here, Mandibuzz is a pretty obvious read, just because Dark Flying pretty much hard walls goes Grass. But I don't want to go for a Rock Slide right out the gate, have this thing stay in and then get burned or something. So I'm just going to play it safe and go for a Power Whip. He ends up going into Mandibuzz, which I didn't, or not surprised at all. He ends up being Rocky Helmet, which shows me that he's probably Fizz Def or whatever. Kind of wishing I would have went for a Rock Slide, because as you're about to see when I go for the Rock Slide right here, it actually would have been a 2-hit KO, like a pretty solid one. And that damage actually suggests to me that he's not Fizz Def, which is kind of interesting that he's Rocky Helmet but not Fizz Def. Normally you're Fizz Def to take less damage and do more damage out. But Rock Slide prevents me from making contact, so I don't take Rocky Helmet damage, and I get to dish out a ton. But Trick Room unfortunately ends after this turn, so I don't want to stay in. Luckily, I know super well enough to know that he's probably just going to Roost or potentially Foul Play here, so I make an aggressive double into Sylveon. He could have potentially went for a Toxic there and completely fucked over my Sylveon, I guess. But I knew that he knew that Mandibuzz was important in this match. So I figured he wanted to try to keep it healthy to serve as a Lopunny check. Spoilers to him, he doesn't actually need it as a Lopunny check, because Lopunny actually doesn't really do very much to Mandibuzz this week. But I know that he thinks that he needs it for this week. So this is a free sub for me, because there's literally nothing Mandibuzz can do. He goes into Aerodactyl here because it's the thing on his team with steel coverage, I guess. But I mean, he breaks my sub, and then I just Hyper Voice him and completely obliterate him. So sub Sylveon already paying off here. He goes back into Jellicent, which is a little bit of an issue because I don't really want anything on my team getting statused. I could make a hard Willow read and go into Darmanitan here, but it doesn't really do me anything right now. So I just go Lantern. If he goes for a Scald, then I absorb it. Actually, no, I don't, because I'm Volt Absorb, that's right. If he goes for a Scald, it doesn't do very much because I'm resisted, but he just goes straight for the burn, and I get burned anyway. The fact that he has Willow at this point also kind of shows me that he's potentially a Willow Hex set. And I guess I can point it out here. I could have also potentially just stayed in with Sylveon, substituted, and then Calm Minded and did a ton to his team. But I wasn't 100% sure on his Jellicent spread at this point. And I didn't want him to be a special attacking set that could actually like pop my sub, or potentially even like Nightshade or something like that. I forget if Jellicent actually gets Nightshade, but I'm pretty sure it does. But I didn't want it to have some weird move that could have popped my sub, I guess. So I just played it safe. Got Dowsy burned, but it's whatever because I have Heal Bell anyway. He doubles out into Thundurus-T, reading my Volt Switch, which is a good play on his part. But like I said, I actually have been trying to lure in Thundurus the entire battle because I want to go for an Ice Beam here. He makes a really smart defensive double, actually, and goes back into Jellicent. I'm not sure if he was reading Ice Beam there. If he was, it was a good play. But either way, Cursed Body actually disables Ice Beam now, so that kind of limits my ability to stay in here with Lantern. He was joking during the battle that Cursed Body was kind of ineffective there because I wouldn't have been using Ice Beam again anyway. But I absolutely would have if he would have made like a triple back into Thundurus here. So at this point, I'm just gonna Volt Switch out. he stays in with Jellicent, which shows me that he's probably going to go for a Hex, but Dhelmise isn't really doing very much at this point in the game, so I just decided to sack it. He could very well just kill me off here, and I'm fully expecting him to. He ends up making a kind of safe defensive switch, I guess, and gets punished for it with a crit. I think he could have probably just gone for a Hex and killed me there, personally. I can't really think of any reason why that wouldn't have worked, unless he forgot that I outsped in Trick Room, or was just reading me to bluff it, I guess. But either way, Dhelmise drops pretty quick. In practice, it wasn't really doing too much once Swampert dropped anyway, so I was kind of okay with that, I guess. But again, Mana Buzz is in, so there's no reason for me not to go Sylveon here and set up another substitute. Like, all it's doing is chunking HP, but since I have leftovers, it's not even really taking that much anyway. And I have HP Fire for this exact situation, because I figure he's going to Bullet Punch and try to pop my sub. He shows good prep here, and actually does have the Aqua Berry. If he didn't have the Aqua Berry, I would have just killed there, so that was good job on his part. I could probably take a Bullet Punch if he's not Choice Banded, and he's obviously not Choice Banded because he's Aqua Berry. But I don't want to chance him being like max attack and then not being able to substitute again later in the game, because it's pretty clear to me that Sylveon is kind of my win con this week. So I'm going to play it safe again and just go into Darmanitan reading the Bullet Punch. It was actually kind of risky now that I think about it, because he very well could have just gone for knockoff there if he read me switching, and a switch was fairly likely, but it's okay because it ended up working out well. I take just over a 4th, which probably means that it's a roll for Bullet Punch to be a 4-hit KO. And at this point, absolutely nothing on his team actually like wants to take a Flare Blitz. So I'm just going to fire that off. Sheer Force boosted Flare Blitz completely decimates Mandibuzz. He actually told me after the battle that he was Spadef Mandibuzz, which I kind of hinted at earlier, but I just wanted to clarify now that it's dead. He told me after the battle that it was Spadef Mandibuzz meant to switch into Nidoking a little bit better, which is good prep on his part, but unfortunately left him a little weak to the physical offense that I brought this week instead. So I take Rocky Helmet and recoil damage, and I'm down to 40%, so I can't really afford to stay in here. If this thing is Spadef also, I could potentially kill here, as ridiculous as that is, but I don't want to chance that because there's no real reason for me to. So I'm just going to go Hard Lantern. If he went for a Hex there, it would have 2-hit KO'd, but since he played it safe and recovered, that means I can take another one. I'm not 100% sure at this point if Lantern outspeeds Jellicent. I haven't actually seen that matchup yet to verify, I think. And if I have, I just wasn't paying attention to it either in the post-com or during the battle. So I'm actually going to go for a Z Heal Bell there, or here, and heal up. And in hindsight, that actually ends up being a slight misplay, and I'll explain it after. So I go for the Z Heal Bell, get rid of my burn, heal up to full. And as he goes for the Hex, it does absolutely nothing because I'm not statused anymore. So overall, it was like an okay play, I guess. But I'm pretty sure at this point that Lantern outsped, and if I was that sure, I could have just gone for a Heal Bell instead of a Z Heal Bell and gotten rid of my burn, taken the Hex, even though I would have still potentially been burned at the time, and then saved Z Heal Bell for later in the battle or something. But it's okay. I ended up going for it now. I'm back up to pretty much full because Hex didn't really do anything, and it allows me to just full switch back out again. The fact he stays in shows me that he's probably going to try to Willow me again just to get more Hex damage off. Curse Body's kind of useless there. So I end up making the aggressive read into DK here. If he would have went for a Scald, obviously DK would have dropped, but I just wanted to play aggressive there, I guess. So I'm going to go for a U-turn here. I can't kill it with anything, so I just kind of wanted to take the Will-O-Wisp. I'm going to go into Cresselia here just to be able to try to Toxic this thing, because it is kind of starting to be an annoying wall for my team. It's kind of obvious that I'm going to go for a Toxic here, and he makes the safe read into Scizor to take it. It missed, but it obviously wouldn't have done anything anyway. And this is probably like the safest quote-unquote play that I made this game, and I didn't really want to make it, but Jellicent is kind of proven to be an issue at this point. So Scizor's in at this point. I could stay in and just try to wear this thing down with Rocky Helmet damage, but I do kind of like Cresselia as an option to switch in and Toxic Jellicent if need be. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back out into Lantern. He goes for the knockoff again, which obviously does nothing again. I go for a Scald here because finally 26 turns into the battle. It occurs to me that because he's Curse Body, he's not Water Absorbed. So I can actually just kind of spam Scald if I want to and potentially get burns on the physical things that I need. Saves me from having to switch into Darmanitan and try to Choice Scarf Will-O-Wisp something. It ends up not really doing anything to Jellicent anyway, even with a crit. It still only does 6% after leftovers, so whatever. As I said, this Jellicent's kind of an issue, so just going to Volt Switch out. I'm going to go back into Cresselia, trying to basically bait the Toxic play again. But this time, I'm just going to go ahead and go for a Trick Room Lunar Dance and play it from there, because I'm kind of tired of this thing just recovering in my face. So Hex does whatever. I figure he's just going to double into Scizor, so I set... I heal up first and then set up Trick Room. I forget. He gets a pretty big crit on that Bug Bite, which ends up not really mattering, but could have potentially if I didn't go for Trick Room there. Because I went for Trick Room, he now is basically forced to go for Bullet Punch, which I calced, and in no universe kills unless he gets another crit. He doesn't get the crit, thankfully. And because he actually took Rocky Helmet damage, that turn actually went even better for me than if I would have just gone for a Lunar Dance and he would have just went for a Bug Bite or something. Because he ends up taking more damage, I end up killing myself and basically trying to get DK here up to full, because DK is also looking like a good wall breaker at the end of the game. And again, at this point, I don't really know what switches into a Flare Blitz, so I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. The answer is Jellicent, but not really, because I could very easily go for another one. Unfortunately, because I'm under Trick Room, I don't really want to stay in. I could pretty easily take a Scald if he has one, but I might as well just keep DK healthy, because there's not really a reason for me not to. Plus he outspeeds right now, so he could very easily just recover spam. He misses the Will-O-Wisp, which kind of stinks. So I end up taking this opportunity on my last turn of Trick Room to be able to get a slow Volt Switch out into Lopunny here. Lopunny at this point isn't really doing that much. Like, I don't really need it for Thundurus, because I already have answers for Thundurus. Medicham should be able to just beat it straight up, I think. It's not going to do enough to Jellicent or Scizor at this point, because I'm not really going to be able to catch Scizor with a Fire Punch, I think. So I end up just bringing in Lopunny here, and just trying to get safe Fake Out and potentially Baton Pass into something for more momentum. That crit technically mattered in that like Fake Out wouldn't have killed there, but since I had Quick Attack, and I don't think I'd actually shown Quick Attack at this point, I was pretty much gonna get a kill there. Again, unless Bullet Punch got like some crazy crit and he was like full max attack adamant or something like that. I think that's like the only way that could have possibly killed Bonnie from full. So it's at this point that I don't have a switch in to Mega Medicham. Cresselia was that switch, and then I had to kind of sack it to get Trick Room stuff up and basically get that Scizor out. My main reason for going for Trick Room back there, by the way, was to get DK up to full and get Lunar Dance up, because I noticed that he, at Scarf, is a pretty good wall breaker for the rest of the game outside of Scarf Thundy. So I just go for the Quick Attack here to get damage. I end up not getting any damage whatsoever because he goes for Drain Punch there. I was kind of expecting him to High Jump Kick, but I guess since I've run Protect specifically to catch High Jump Kick on Mega Lopunny before, I guess I can see why he did not run it this week. So again, good prep on his part. I go into DK here because obviously I'm Scarfed, and nothing wants to switch into 2 Flare Blitzes at this point. He sacks Thundy, which is nice and satisfying for me because I did not want to have to deal with a Thundurus anymore. So Thundy drops, and he ends up... Yep, Thundy drops, I said. There we go. And I take a ton of recoil because he was obviously at full. I can technically stay in here and just get a big chunk of Flare Blitz damage off, die to recoil, or whatever. But I play it safe and just go into Lantern because there's not really a reason not to at this point. I'm going to Volt Switch. I read him to red me Volt Switching on this one. So I actually tried to go for a Scald, potentially trying to catch the Mega Medicham in and just kind of ending this game without having to set up. It ends up not really working out for me. I got spoilers, I get the burn, but it's on a Jellicent, so it doesn't really matter. And Scald being disabled makes it even more annoying because now I basically have to Volt Switch out. Not really the end of the world though, because since I do outspeed, I can go into Sylveon here pretty safely. And as you can see, that only does 18%, which means that he's not popping any subs whatsoever. Which is awesome for me, because that means I can pretty much just set up for free here. He goes for a recovery here, which I was kind of surprised about, but I guess he just wanted to get up to full. I also hadn't shown Calm Mind until turn 42, so I guess he didn't know if I had it or not. I don't think Scald would have actually popped the sub either, even before Calm Mind. But obviously having the Calm Mind here helped out a little bit. The second Scald does, so I'm just going to set up another sub here and be safe. It's at this point that I pretty much have the battle won, though. The second I got behind a sub and got to +1, he couldn't really revenge me very easily with Mega Medicham. Jellicent drops, Mega Medicham comes in and gets a Bullet Punch off to pop the sub, but doesn't really matter because I'm just going to Hyper Voice it. And we end up winning 3-0. So, great battle, nerd. It's always really fun to battle because we obviously know each other pretty well. We have a good idea of how each other's teams work pretty well because we practice against each other like dozens of times a week, I would say. And while his season hasn't exactly gone the way that he wanted it to, I still think that he has a fun team to play against and stuff. And hope things go better in the future. So we're 5-2 now, which is awesome. We're unfortunately not even winning our division at the moment because our division rival Dowsy is having a better differential than us, I believe. But we get a chance to take them on again next week. Not even going to front, I'm pretty nervous about it. I haven't exactly historically had the best record against Dowsy, so I'm going to have to kind of rack my brain for some heat to bring, potentially. So I'm going to go ahead and leave now. Thankfully this post-com went a little bit more fluidly than the last one did, I think. So if you guys enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe, leave a comment for some stuff that you'd like to see in the future. I really like interacting with you guys, so it really means a lot to me when you drop comments. But yeah, I will see you guys next week against the AC and the Lantern. Have a good one.